Eternal damnation is here at Hell in a Cell.
Welcome to Hell in a Cell, an animation podcast where me and my co-host watch an episode of a cartoon and then talk about it. I'm James.
I'm Mariya.
There you go. And today we watched The Dragon Prince.
Yep, it's a new Netflix TV show.
New. What does that mean?
Yes. It's relatively recent as compared to all of the other shows that we've watched.
We watched Hilda. Well, you watched Hilda.
That was still older than Dragon Prince.
Is it? Okay, never mind. Okay, well, yeah, we watched The Dragon Prince, episode 1 of season 1, Echoes of Thunder. Pretty cool title. Release date September 14th, 2018, along with every other episode from the first season, because it's Netflix. Created by Aaron
Ehas, James.
Is that how you say it?
That is that's the most I can infer from the name that we have.
Okay, if it's wrong, sorry. Hey, we just got done with Anime April. I couldn't pronounce any of those names. Aaron Ehas and Justin Richmond. This episode was directed by Giancarlo Volpe. Animation directors were Carlisle Wilson and Marwan Salim. Art director, Edison Yan. All right, Mariya, give us a summary.
Okay. So the episode starts off with a kind of recap of what's been happening in this sort of fantasy world that we're in, where there are dragons, and there's this one human sorcerer that decides to use these dragons' powers and sort of basically convert them into magical energy to become all powerful. And the elves don't like that, so they basically shun away all humans to the other side of the continent, and separate themselves from humans. There's a big war between the two cities, clans, countries, not sure. And in the fight, there's like a dragon king, and he comes and attacks the army, and his only heir is destroyed. And so now the elves hate the humans forever and always. And we start off in this kingdom, with a scout sort of keeping an eye out in the forest, and he basically sees this group of people in like hoods, and one of them runs after him and with two knives, and looks like she's definitely going to kill him, but she doesn't kill him, and she lets him go. And we find out later that these are moon elves who are here to kill the king. That is what we are led to assume. In the kingdom, the king tries to get his stepson and his actual son away from the kingdom when he finds out that these people are basically coming to kill him, and he wants his heir safe. And so he's trying to ship away both his stepson and his son out of the kingdom to whatever winter home that they have. And they send basically, I think it's their general, who's very young to be a general, by the way, send him to basically find these moon elves by following this moon moth or something like that. And the general goes looking for them, following this moth. And as the moth find these elves, they have just enough time to sort of make a glamour and hide in plain sight from the army. And basically the girl, the elf who spared the scout is in big trouble. And that's where we end the episode.
Right. Okay, Mariya, what did you think of The Dragon Prince?
I want to watch it basically because I want to watch more of it because of the story that it has going. It has a very, I don't know if you've read James. It has a very Aragon-esque feel to it. I don't know if you've read those
Aragon.
books. Yeah.
Oh God, I remember Aragon.
I loved those books. I loved them so much. They were good books. But it has a very Aragon-esque feel to it because even in that sort of storyline, like all the dragons are supposed to be dead, except for the king that has that big dragon. So it has a very like that kind of feel to it, and it has also like the character designs are very interesting, and I want to see more of it. They're very like very D&D in their appearance.
Nerd.
I know you are too, James.
Yeah, because we played D&D together.
We do, yes.
Yeah, it's basically kind of a it's kind of a big D&D campaign. The Aaron,
He has.
the guy who helped make Avatar, probably had a D&D campaign with all these elves in it and a Durgan, and he was just like, TV show.
Right.
Yes. All joking aside, though, I've actually watched all of The Dragon Prince so far. Binged it, like you're supposed to, apparently. And I really like it. It's not great. It's good. It scratches that fantasy itch. For
Right.
some people have, like me. I really love fantasy.
Me too. I love fantasy. It's so much fun.
Yeah. So it services that itch well, but it has some stumbling blocks. That's the story, the characters are not 100% there. And it's really hard not to compare it to Avatar when you have one of the Avatar guys here.
Right.
And Avatar is, well, Avatar.
Right.
It's a near flawless piece of media. Like, any follow-up is going to be, judged unfairly, I guess.
A little bit, maybe. You are judging a piece of media or comparing a piece of media with another piece of media, and they're not all apples to apples comparisons. Definitely, like a lot of things vary. The experience of the animation team, the experience of the directors, the directorial team, the storyboarding team, writers, how people meld together in teams like this. A lot of stuff translates onto a product. A lot of interpersonal stuff translates onto a product, especially when a bunch of people are working on something together. If there's issues within the team, it is bound to be seen in the product.
Right.
Not saying that there is any issues. We didn't find any.
Oh yeah, no.
We didn't find any like evidence of anything like that. It's just, again, can't do an apples to apples comparison. But yes, Avatar was great.
Yep. But I would still recommend I guess we're spoiling the end of this thing, but I would still recommend watching, The Dragon Prince with that Netflix subscription that you are definitely stealing.
Right. God damn it. Pay the person. Damn it.
They don't need the money.
God damn it, James. I'm the one bearing the burden of my Netflix account with like 5 other people leeching off of it. Damn it.
Wow. I feel sorry for you.
The buck gets passed every now and again. It's fine.
Okay, that's good. But anyway, back to the Dragon Prince.
Yes.
Yeah, where do we want to begin?
I suppose we did talk a little bit about you watching the whole thing. It's a very it's not an episodic thing. It's a complete series thing that you want to binge.
You know what? Actually, I think that's a big weakness too of the series is that it's not episodic.
Right.
It feels like it should be. And the episodes are kind of written in that regard, but they are not made to be, watched and they're not written as episodic episodes. Like a certain other series called Avatar, where there's especially in the second and third season there's a long running narrative, but you've still got an episodic feel to things.
Right, there was like a closure at the end of the episode, or like the two-parters where it would be like a to be continued thing.
Right.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think the pilot is definitely the one that suffers the worst. Or this episode.
It does seem like it, mostly because like it does give a good intro into the show. Like I want to watch more of it, definitely. And like the art style is good. Like the character individually, these characters, they look great. So whoever sat and did this character creation and thought process behind these characters were very good, and they were very detailed. And you can tell that a lot of work was put into a lot of these characters, even the sort of the background characters, the extras. But it just feels like a lot of different teams were working on this, on separate parts of this.
It's disassociative.
Yeah, they failed to communicate with each other. A lot of the problems with the animation that both me and James found was that they were desynergized. There were different aspects of the animation that were done by what seems like, or at least looks like on screen, by different teams that did not manage to communicate with each other properly, and therefore produced a very clunky. Especially, like there are certain aspects that are very well done, and then certain aspects, especially when there are like different kinds of like light effects involved, they didn't do as well in terms of those special effects.
You know what my guess is, actually? The intro that happened looks completely different to the rest of the show.
Yeah.
And it's pretty jarring going from those first couple minutes of the show to the rest of the show and having it just be really different.
Right.
What I bet happened was that was a test animation that they sent to Netflix, probably done by Aaron and Justin's like animation team. Like the group they got together, they to make this little thing that would show Netflix, this is what we're planning, along with, a bunch of documents outlining the show and like how everything would look.
Right.
And they put it, and, you put it in the show and it looks completely different to what the rest of the product is, because that was made
to be a TV product, not like a pitch point.
Right. It could have been made years before the actual thing was, made.
Right. I mean, that is probably what it is, because again, like, so the starting shot with like the dragon sort of flying over the sort of waterfall was very good to look at. It was very aesthetically pleasing. It was really pretty to look at. But then as you get into sort of what seems like different color palettes, because that first like maybe 30 something seconds was very sort of, the color palette was very bright, and then it suddenly goes into this very dark color palette. So when they're sort of transitioning into that color palette, they weren't able to fuse it properly, essentially, is what it seemed like. And then that one scene, which I made James pause while we were watching it, because it was so jarringly different and desynergized. Basically, it was like the Dragon King just comes down settles down to attack this army of humans. And so in the foreground you have the army, in the midground you have the dragon, in the background you have sort of this very sort of battlefield type, like dust in the air and like smoky effect going. Not much detail in the background, but the dragon essentially just looks very like it like as though it was cut out from a different sort of animation thing and like pasted onto this frame.
You know,
and then
what
like
probably happened there
what
is he was probably from that test animatic that they made.
Probably. Like,
And-
that's what it seems like. Because
Yeah.
it looks like they pulled him out from somewhere and they just dropped him in there.
They probably had a separate shot of the dragon doing that.
Yeah. Because it doesn't like fit well. Like, he was very clearly 3D animation. And again, like the characters, the human characters at least, they have this outline. Like, they have outlines. Their bodies have outlines to like separate them from the background. This dragon did not have any outlines or any sort of like clear outlines for like shading and lighting and stuff like that. This dragon did not have any of that. It was very clearly sort of a 3D animation thing going. Which is what made him look so different from the sort of the army, because they were regular human drawn with like outlines and everything.
Well, those are also 3D animation.
They are, but again, they like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the outline, the lack of outline on the dragon is what makes him look like he doesn't belong in this particular frame in this animation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't have that faux 2D style that they kind of slap over the 3D.
Yeah, basically. And I think that's where like even sort of that weird pug-like pet that one of the princes has in the beginning, he's sort of glowing, and I think the problem is that they're trying to add this sort of 3D type of glow to something that has this sort of faux 2D-ness to it, which is what makes it look very bizarre and sort of out of place, you know? Because when they try to do that glowing thing, when he's under sort of like when they're playing hide and seek and he's under sort of these sheets, it looks all right. It looks like, yeah, this is supposed to be the animation. But when they're trying to do it just solely on that creature, it just looks out of place. It looks very out of place, essentially. Kind of like as though the person who was drawing them didn't know that this was going to happen and couldn't sort of compensate for it.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, like that it was added later on, and this person, whoever designed and drew on these frames, had no idea that this was going to happen to this creature, and basically drew him without having made like contingencies for something like that happening to said character, you know?
It happens a lot with pilots, especially for animation, where you have elements that either they thought of later on and needed to retroactively put back into the pilot, or they thought of during the making of the pilot.
Right.
Added in.
Right. I mean, again, like we watched the pilot, so there was a lot of like clunkiness involved. Like we did see a few layer bleeding. We saw layer bleeding happening every now and again.
It's like, do you want to explain that, Mariya?
No, you explain it. You're the animation expert, remember?
Oh, well, I mean, that's also, art thing.
Yeah, but you do
explain. Okay, fine. Basically, if you've worked with any program that does art that's not MS Paint, you have you have layers that you can layer onto an image, and you can do that in a 3D space as well. Where you have, you, especially in the early days of like 3D animation, you just kind of stick like another let's say you have a ball for the head. If you wanted the eyes, you'd have to just kind of stick the eyes, another ball, into that other ball. So you'd have these two like distinct layers of 3D shape just kind of colliding against each other.
Right.
So in this, we saw some of the layers of the elf girl's. Why can't I remember her name? I've seen the show.
Kayla.
Kayla. Is it?
I think so.
Oh, God. I'm a bad fan. I'm a bad fan, Mariya.
Oh, my God, James. It's fine.
Anyway, we saw some layers of her eye. She has like a little blue mark under her eye. And we saw that kind of get a little distinct with her eye as they were moving around the 3D object.
Right.
So it's a little sloppy. I mean, you'd have to be us to notice it. But
yeah.
it still doesn't excuse that a lot of these elements don't mesh well together.
Like
completely.
I think that's like the story is very interesting. Again, like I want to watch more of it. There is, however, these sort of animation elements that make it look kind of like I don't know if this, mixes well with what you have going.
Right. And I really want to know why they chose to have have outlines on their characters.
Right. Like I don't think they needed to.
No. They've got 2D backgrounds.
Yeah.
For them, no, they don't have 2D backgrounds, but they have art layered over the background.
Right.
With 3D objects in the space. And so I guess they wanted them to mesh better with the backgrounds. But
maybe.
I guess.
Which the backgrounds were really gorgeous to look at. Like, especially wherever there was some sort of light involved, like in like brightness. Because like the forest area was very murky and I don't know. But wherever like there was a good lighting involved, the backgrounds were very, very good. Like I like the shot for the castle, the background shots for when they're sparring, the shots of the bedrooms where we basically see the two princes first. So a lot of those backgrounds were very, very detailed and very pretty. Like I would have those. I would like to have those as posters or something. Like those are really, really pretty. And separately from that, like the character designs and color palettes were very good. Again, it's kind of like there was definitely some communication disconnect happening somewhere when it came to these ideas of what they want, or just too many ideas trying to manifest into this piece, basically. And again, this is a pilot, so maybe they start to consolidate on one thing and it evolved into something else. I haven't seen the whole thing. James has, so
the animation does get better in season 2. I will give it that.
Okay.
It does look a lot better in the second season.
Right.
But in the first season, it's still pretty bad.
Right. I mean, it's totally possible that they have sort of a newer animation team too that they have to work with, and similar deadlines like other like shows would generally have. So maybe it took some time for them to get used to what the hell is going on.
Right. There's a lot of explanations for this. What does have an explanation and is unfortunate is the frame rate.
Right.
Mariya, what's a frame rate?
It's how many frames show up per second, right? Yeah. I know my animation terms. I listen to the podcast too,
Okay, I'm not an expert on frame rates. I can't tell you. It's hard for me to tell frame rates just by eye. I'm getting better at it, but it's pretty tough for me, and I just don't know a lot about it. However, the frame rate in this show is dog shit. And according to the Wikipedia and a Reddit AMA with the creators, they intentionally lowered the frame rate of the show.
Why?
To counteract the floatiness. Now, what I do know about frame rates, because there are a few like game developers on YouTube that I've seen, according to them, your frame rate is affected by the amount of stuff on the program is trying to run at one time.
Right.
So when you have something that's running a whole, like a crowd scene in like a video game, you're going to get a lower frame rate if you don't start chopping elements out of it.
Right.
Or you have just a super great program you're working with.
Right.
So that's how they explain how you'll get a lower frame rate. And the principle should follow over to animation. I'm not entirely sure because 3D animation. The point is, like, I can see kind of the idea. They wanted to lower the frame rate to reduce the floatiness of the animation.
Right.
Which means that everything looked a little too smooth and not connected.
Right, a little more choppy. Yeah.
Not choppy. It looked like the things weren't in the same space as each other.
Right. I think even like in terms of expression that they had going on, it wasn't as smooth as you would like them to be.
No.
'Cause remember when Kayla is sort of like talking to her dad and then walking away, she has this really weird expression on her face and it just stays like put. Like just like stays there.
I didn't know.
As she sort of walks out of like the frame. And it was really, really weird because her expression was just very bizarre. And kind of rigid and like stuck in place, essentially, almost as if they forgot to change it as the frames were moving on.
Probably what happened is that they're working with this whole animation style that hasn't been really replicated before.
Right.
At least in my limited knowledge of TV shows, I can't remember anything that looked like this. Aside from probably a big budget movie, which completely different from this. So probably the studio just didn't have either the time or the know-how to create a solution to the animation looking off. So this was their best solution.
It does feel like they're working out of their element a little bit and trying to get used to this sort of art style because it looks good. I don't have a problem with the way that it looks. It's just desynergized in spots, which kind of makes it look amateurish almost.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it does.
Just a little bit. And again, it is a pilot episode, so there's a lot of recycling happening. So, but
I actually met an animation director at Comic-Con. No names. Could be anybody.
Okay. Could be anybody.
And you don't know what Comic-Con either.
Sure.
But they said that they did not like the look of the Dragon Prince.
Oh.
And it's coming from somebody who worked in the animation industry. And they didn't want to watch it because of how it looked.
Because of the art style?
Well, I wouldn't say the art style, but just that,
Okay.
The choppiness of it all.
Interesting.
We didn't have a very long conversation about that, but I will say that it does get a lot better in season 2.
Okay.
The frame rate is a lot better. The elements seem to coexist a lot more smoothly.
Right.
But,
and I mean, we just watched one episode, so I don't have much input to give about like story and character arcs and so on and such.
Right.
But I definitely do want to see more of the show to look at the characters and their arcs, because there's definitely potential. Like they've already there looks like to be a lot of potential for a lot of the characters to sort of like grow and arc. Because we have like a bratty little prince who thinks he can basically just do whatever he wants, not do whatever he wants, but like he wants to help his dad and is like, I'm gonna go onto the field and like I'm gonna save the king and blah blah blah.
I'm gonna get the damsel.
Yeah. We have sort of like
There's
have like a
also
little
voiced
a
by
younger
Sokka.
prince. Yeah, that guy was voiced by Sokka. Yeah. And then we have like a little younger prince who is sort of a little out of the loop because he is a child, and so there's potential for like some kind of character arc happening over there. I like the king's design. I'm digging the dreads.
Should we just get into character designs now?
Yeah, we might as well talk about that since we're kind of on that.
I love the character designs.
Me too. I think they're really, really distinct and very, very, very well done, very diverse, and very interesting.
They get a lot more diverse as the series goes on, I'll tell you that.
Right. And like they're very detailed.
They're detailed without being overly detailed.
Yeah, exactly. They've got like signatures because you have to. You're working with like different races, like distinct races. We got humans and elves, and then so they have to make sure that they're maintaining the distinction between those two while also showing diversity in both. Especially with skin color, because you can see there's like some of the moon elves are also like dark skinned, so you can see they're like kind of like grayish. There's like one of them in that group, and then you have like people with different skin tones in the human race, so they have to make these characters look very distinct. These two races look very distinct because they want to maintain diversity within them as well.
Wait a minute, Mariya. Wait, hold on. I'm not getting this. You mean all of them aren't a white person?
God, James, I was so worried. I was like, what? Yes, James, they're not all white people.
But that goes against all of fantasy. Everybody's a white person in fantasy. Just look at Lord of the Rings.
That's a terrible example. Also, that's a very old movie.
I mean, it's based on a book as well.
I know, but like
I mean, it's
that's a very old book too.
I mean, the movie's not that old.
It's pretty old, James.
Oh my god. Anyway. Yeah, everybody's not a white people.
That's
good.
They're not all white people, which is nice to look at. It's very refreshing.
A white person, Mariya, I have a card that says I'm a white person. It gives me the white privilege. As a white people, I'm tired of seeing white people.
Right.
We suck, We really do. So seeing a bunch of, people of, who are different from me, both fills me with fear and anger, but also happiness. And
fear and anger.
Well, James. It's just a natural response. It's in the DNA. I can't change it. I'm just digging a hole deeper and deeper, aren't I?
Yeah, I'm just gonna make it really clear. James is being very derisive right now. He's not serious about any of this.
No, no.
Just for anyone who does not, James. Okay, look, James.
What?
It's a reality you have to face. Your sarcasm doesn't get through to a lot of people, so I'm gonna have to hold up the sarcasm card and just be very, very clear that James is being very derisive. Most of the time when he says anything like this, he's just being very derisive.
I try so hard, but I just can't be sarcastic.
You just don't have a distinct tone when you're being sarcastic. It's okay, James. It comes with time.
Anyway, white people suck.
Right.
Then again, the main character is a white people, too.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, baby steps.
Baby steps, I guess. I mean, technically, Aang was like, what was he? Tibetan?
Technically.
Technically.
I mean, yeah, kind of, yeah. That's why I really liked Avatar. There was like good brown people involved. Made me happy.
Yeah, there are a lot of brown people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're club of brown people.
Yeah,
From Asia.
I'm brown. Yeah. I was very happy when I watched it. Anyway, but like when we even saw like that shot of like these different elven sort of clans, maybe not sure because we don't get to see much of them. But like, well, it's kind of like they're dressed differently, so you can tell that they're dressed differently. Their hair is different. Their clothes are different.
There's elves based on all of the we've upgraded from 4 elements to 6 now.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And there's an elf for each magic type.
Yeah, so you can tell like the way that they're dressed is very sort of distinct and very detailed. In like enough detail to help you tell these different groups apart. And not overly detailed where you feel inundated and just they're redundant or have no sort of value to the character. So it's a good balance that they have.
They probably learned that from Avatar, where each nation had a very distinct but different way of dressing from each other. But they also had unique stuff within those unique styles.
Yeah, and that's very, very common even within sort of just cultures, like real life cultures. Like people do, like they'll dress similarly, but they have like maybe the color scheme will be the same, but the designs would be different. For example, while I was on exchange, I lived in the west of France, and basically they have this sort of headdress that the women would wear. And essentially, in olden times, depending on which city you were coming from, your headdress would have sort of like a different design to it, and you could tell who was coming from what city based on the design of your headdress. So it's very natural for people even living in the same sort of culture to have distinct features about them, even though they're very similar.
It's almost like putting in the work and making something is hard, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, almost as if mirroring real life culture and diversity is good for you, almost.
Well, without getting into stereotypes.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
Which, so far, I don't think the Dragon Prince has done. Except for pirates.
So far,
they do stereotype pirates, and it's very offensive.
Oh my god, James. Jeez. There are no pirates here to protest, so James is protesting for them.
I think they need an ACLU to protest for them. Where's the Pirate Civil Liberties Union?
Oh my god. They don't
now.
need a civil... God damn it, James, they're criminals.
Hey, that's offensive. It's for scavengers.
It's really not. It's really not.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's a good show. I would love to see more of it.
I would recommend watching more of it. It's good. Just the animation is really rough. And
a little bit in certain places, yeah.
In certain places. I mean, it's not unwatchable.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Like every now and again you feel
fairy tale.
Nothing can be as bad as fairy tale. And again, like me and James, we watch these episodes with the eyes of someone trying to critique it. So if you're just watching it for the fun of it, you probably won't even notice some stuff. And like it's definitely one of those shows that some of this stuff we notice because we're watching it from the perspective of someone trying to critique it. And as someone who was not trying to critique it, probably would go blindsided. So definitely not something that makes the show unwatchable.
No.
And according to James, they also improved, which is always a good thing.
Yes, they do improve. I can attest to that.
Okay, so how much would you give it, James, out of 4 fingers?
No. I'd give it like 3 fingers.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's just it's the fact that it's by one of the Avatar guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it wasn't by one of the Avatar guys, I don't know if I would, be as down on the show as I am.
Right.
And critiquing it as hard as I do when I watched it. But
right.
It does have that giant shadow looming over it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a pedigree can be a very useful thing to get people to watch your stuff.
Right.
But it's also a chain around your neck.
Oh boy, yeah, a little bit, yeah. Yeah,
but
I would
do
also
enjoy it.
Yeah, I would around give it something, yeah, like 3 star, like three fingers, yeah, out of 4, like, because it's not, it doesn't leave me wanting to see more of it, which is something that you want out of a pilot anyway. So I look forward to binging it sometime this week.
Oh,
yeah,
you'll have to tell me what you thought of it.
Yeah, I will.
And definitely. I think we'll probably revisit this.
Probably, yeah. Just like do maybe like the 2nd season to see if they've improved or not at some point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I'm definitely in the show. I'm strapped in. I'm waiting for all 6 seasons and a movie to come out. Come on, let's do this.
Oh God, them trying to do like a live action version and like failing miserably.
With M. Night Shyamalan, Madama.
Oh my God. There was an Aragon live action movie as well.
I watched it.
You have?
Yes.
I haven't. No.
It's garbage.
I don't think. Worse than Percy Jackson or better than Percy Jackson?
I haven't seen Percy Jackson, so I cannot say.
Ah, okay. Well, I've seen Percy Jackson, and that thing was a real hot pile of shit, man.
Aragon came out like right at the beginning of that glut of young adult fantasy books. Like right after Harry Potter 3, I think, is when it came out. I could be wrong on that one, but it came out early and it shows.
It reminds me, I think I've seen like some parts of it, and it reminds me of like Dragonheart.
With Liam Neeson?
I don't know if that's
the Dragon
Oh no,
Scottish.
Braveheart. I think I was talking about Braveheart. Braveheart is what I'm talking about.
The Mel Gibson movie?
I think.
The Scottish one?
Yeah.
You've seen Braveheart?
I've seen Braveheart, yes.
I just don't understand anything about what you...
Yes, I've seen Braveheart. Anyway, dragons aside. Watch it. Watch the show. Watch it on Netflix. Pay your Netflix. The person who's like, just
if you're
pay
a
them,
scrub.
Man. If you're leeching off of someone's Netflix, like pay them, man. Especially if you're like an ex. Especially if you're like an ex. Please.
Oh my God.
Anyway, that's all, folks.
That's all. What are we watching next?
I don't know. What are we watching next, James?
I ask you every time, and you never know.
Because you're the one who makes the schedule.
Right. To prepare for the end of the month, where we were watching the Powerpuff Girls movie.
We are, yes.
We're going to be watching some of that good old Powerpuff Girls action from 2016.
Whoa. So watching the newer ones.
Yep. Oh, that's already been canceled. And forgotten.
Yes, we're going to watch that and the Powerpuff Girls movie for Movie Night in Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned.
You just said so many ending catchphrases.
I did.
That I'm just so confused now. What is the ending catchphrase?
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, James.
What?
Did you hear?
What?
Satan's opening his new theater in hell.
That's where we live.
And our listeners can join us for just $1.
That costs less than the Netflix subscription I steal.
So head over to patreon.com/chaoticsilly to join us for our exclusive podcast, Movie Night in Hell.
It's like hell in a cell, but with movies.
So join us for our screening of the Powerpuff Girls movie, In Hell.
Bring popcorn. No free refills.